they'd planned were warned and pushed away. We finally felt some relief. Still, it was very dangerous to go outside, and it was impossible to move freely around the city. Sometime later, the first Somali Reconciliation Conference was opened in Djibouti. Ali Mahdi was selected as the president of Somalia. General Aidid rejected the decision, and fighting broke out again between different factions. For us, this was a strange kind of relief, because those who had been targeting us became busy fighting among themselves. At that time, I began going out into the city more often. I was looking for a way to leave Mogadishu. I learned that people were gathering at a place called Filabetabo, where transport was being arranged for those who wanted to go to Kismayo. I went there and met a man who was collecting money from people wishing to leave. I told him that I wanted to go to Kismayo. He told me how much I had to pay. I paid him the money, and he told me to come back the next day. I went to a nearby house where a woman who was related to me lived. Her name was Fatima Alidir. She was staying there with a young girl who was also her relative. Every morning, I went back to the man, but each time he told me, "Come back tomorrow." There was nothing else I could do except agree. This went on for 1 full week of going back and forth. Aunt Fatima Alidiri asked me what the problem was, and I explained everything to her. Around 5 p.m. she said, "Let's go, show me the man." We went to Filabetabo, but we did not find him. Instead, there were many men sitting around, drinking tea and talking, and Fatima greeted them and told them the whole story. She said, "If you want to rob us, then say so openly. You have been robbing us already." One of the men replied, "Fatima, no one will be robbed here. You will get your money back." They asked me if I knew the man who had taken my money. I said yes and pointed him out. They recognized him. He was called and said, "I will give him his money. Tell him to come tomorrow." We left. The next morning I returned. When I met him, he asked angrily, "Why did you report me?" I replied, "You are the one who kept telling me to come back tomorrow and never helped me." He gave me my money without saying anything else. I returned to the house and informed Aunt Amino about what had happened. I told her that I was leaving. Some of the others who were there said they were leaving too. My grandfather, Nur Hashi Alas, told me, "Do not go. Stay here. That road is long and cannot be trusted." I told him I did not want to remain there anymore. He insisted again, "No, do not go." That night I slept. But after the morning prayer, I packed my bag. My grandfather asked me, "Have you decided to leave?" I answered, "Yes, grandfather. I have grown to hate this place." He stayed silent for a while, then gave me $100. We said our goodbyes, my grandfather, Aunt Amino, and everyone else. Then I left together with Abdurrahman Farooq Abdul and several women.
Abdul, may Allah have mercy on him, and I, together with the women, reached Filabetabo. There were a huge number of people gathered there, all desperate to leave. We were all taken to a large garage not far from that place. We stayed there for 3 days. I will never forget a young woman I saw during those days. For 3 days and nights she barely rested. She was constantly moving up and down, from early morning until late evening. At the time, I did not know who she was, but I was amazed by her strength and determination. Despite her exhaustion, she was coordinating tirelessly, trying to arrange safe passage for all those people by negotiating with the armed groups controlling the road ahead. On the 3rd day, in the late afternoon, we finally left. We departed in 2 large trucks and 2 smaller vehicles carrying armed men. Though soldiers had been organized by that same young woman, we continued our journey. I do not know the exact number of people traveling, but all the vehicles were completely full, mostly women and children, many of them carrying babies. One of the vehicles carrying passengers moved ahead of us. I was traveling in one of the other vehicles, which included heavily armed men. After traveling for some time, around 7 or 8 o'clock, we were confronted by an armed vehicle coming from the opposite direction. They had already dropped off passengers earlier, but now they began firing shots, and chaos broke out between the group traveling with us and those coming from the earlier vehicle. There was shouting and confusion for a while. We later realized that the men who confronted us were trying to rob us. Fortunately, the armed men accompanying us refused to allow that. The would-be robbers eventually left, and we continued our journey. We then reached a place where people had been stranded. When they saw us, they ran toward us and asked if we had been robbed. We told them no. They then told us that they had been robbed of everything they owned, money, gold, even the jewelry worn by women. They were all crying, but there was nothing we could do to help them. That place was an abandoned village called Ababe. That night, no one slept. We were told that bandits often attacked the area. Every time we heard the sound of a vehicle engine, anyone who could run would flee into the bush. We spent the entire night like that. After praying the dawn prayer, those who were able to walk began moving. A few young men and I left on foot and took a long road. Along the way, we encountered nomadic pastoralists with their livestock. Around 8 a.m., we reached an area where soldiers were stationed. They welcomed us, questioned us briefly, and then allowed us to rest. We took shelter under the trees. The women and children we had left behind were later sent vehicles and were brought to join us. At that location, General Morgan arrived with several military officers. Among them was a short, quiet man whom most people did not recognize at the time. Later, we were told that he was Abdullahi Yusuf. They spoke with the soldiers and then left. After resting, we continued walking, and by evening we reached the town of Bara. At that time, the entire area from there all the way to Kismayo was under the control of Darude forces. We spent that night in Bara. The following morning, we boarded a vehicle and traveled to Kismayo. We arrived in Kismayo around sunset.